Welcome to Morin the Know podcast. I'm your host, Josh Morin, co-founder and vice president of Field Supplements, as well as sobriety, woke, business, and wellness coach. Morin the Know delivers an array of content based on marketing, health and fitness, personal branding, addiction, and often goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy, politics, and the truth. If you seek to better understand the inner workings of human performance, consciousness, business, and humanity, you have come to the right place. Thank you for tuning in and taking along. Let's get today's podcast started. What's up, everyone? It's Monday. I'm doing this on a Monday afternoon because, quite frankly, I haven't been driving around much. And who out there is a lot like me that when you drive around or shower, mostly driving around and showering are the two times that I always find myself receiving a lot of different thoughts. And that's where I really do my deep thinking. Well, I should be worried about focus on the traffic, but I can multitask. But typically when I'm driving and I'm going places, when I'm on the road really gives me so much inspiration and so much insight. I don't know if it's something about that connectivity and the movement, whatever it is, or my body just in motion. For some reason, every single time that I leave the house, I get in the car, I drive somewhere, drive back, I always have some sort of a thought in my mind that I could definitely deliver some content on. So that's where my inspiration came today. As this morning, I really didn't have a whole lot of inspiring content, and I wanted to deliver something powerful on this Monday. And I knew by the end of the day, I knew by midday, throughout the day, that it would come to me. And I just had that faith in that faith and trust and source would deliver, and it definitely did. Before I jump in today's podcast, I want to give a shout out to Matt Quigley at Trials and Tribulations Clothing for sponsoring today's podcast. This is episode number 21. So thank you, Matt, for this awesome tank top. I rock this bad boy all the time. And you can find his Instagram tag down below in the description box, as well as his website. So be sure to check out Trials and Tribulations Clothing. It's a really cool clothing line with a great message. And Matt's just an awesome, phenomenal guy. He's a big Fueled supporter. So I'm all about supporting, like I said, local. I'm wearing a one of my other buddies' hats. I'm not going to turn around because I don't want you guys to see my head, but I'll give him a shout out at a different time and give him his light and the respect and light that he deserves here in another podcast. So today's podcast is about this. It's about no matter what happens in your life, this is going to be so cliche, but everything happens for a reason, and here's why. And I want to tell this reason, and I want to share a short story about my life within the last year and really bring it all together in the very end. So bear with me here. So a year ago, I was living in North Scottsdale. I had no plans. I had no motivation to make a wrestling comeback. What I was actually working toward a year ago was getting into a retail facility to sell my supplements, as well as have part of that facility have wrestling mats inside of there. So about a year ago, I purchased a little over 1,000 square feet of wrestling mats, and I wanted to get a retail space where I could have both wrestling mats as well as supplements. So I was looking at these retail spaces all over the valley, in the west side of the valley, and in Glendale and Peoria, as well as the east side of the valley, over more towards Tempe, Scottsdale, and really weighing out all my options. During this time, I was looking at some facilities, and the head coach at Arizona Christian University reached out to me and said, "Hey, we are actually looking for a facility for our college program. Would you be interested in joining up and collaborating and having Fueled, our wrestling room, somehow be working together where we run our practices out of your facility, and we can have co-leasing on the facility, or we could rent from you, or whatever the situation may be. But essentially, I would have the college guys rent out my facility for a duration of the day." And I was like, yes, absolutely. Let's take a look into that. I think that'd be a phenomenal way to get involved with the college. I think it'd be a great way to really kickstart things because both programs are brand new. They're in their first year in the NAI division. I would be in my first year of having a retail location. Obviously, overhead and owning a space is expensive, and there's so many unknowns with overhead and business, and we'll get into that a little bit more because I think you guys can kind of see where this already is going. So we were looking at a couple different retail spaces to be able to have our facility for wrestling. And we were looking and looking, and we thought we nailed down a spot. We thought we had a perfect amount of space, not only space, but it made sense financially, and it made sense in the location. Location is everything. But the time that would take the college athletes to get there is about 30 seconds because it was across the street, as well as it made sense for me because it was a really large location. I was going to be able to host or have all of my supplements inside the facility, as well as be able to run a complete combat sports facility there as well. It's a huge location at a phenomenal price tag. And essentially, I was about a day away from saying, all right, let's pull the trigger on this thing, because it felt like we were reaching a deal. And Coach Patrick calls me, gives me a ring and says, hey, do you want the good news, the bad news? Well, actually, he said, let's meet up. And I go meet up with the building owner, and I go meet up with the head coach, and I arrive, and he has a kind of look on his face like, man, something didn't go well. And I go, what's up? He goes, do you want the good news or the bad news? I said, well, of course the bad news. He said, well, the bad news is 5 minutes ago I got a call from the administration saying they stripped the budget for our project. They stripped all of our funding. It's like, okay, well, what's the good news? And he said, well, the good news is that we could potentially still make it work, still make it happen, but probably not in this facility. So we weren't able to conjoin efforts. We weren't able to get together and work together anymore. The administration pulled all the funding for that project, and there was absolute no way that I was going to be able to pay for the facility by myself in my first year. Just absolutely no way. It was not a risk that I was willing to take. And so I said, okay, took a deep breath and said, all right, maybe this is a sign that right now is not the time for me to get into a retail space. And I continued to look even after, and we still wanted to work something out. We still wanted to work together somehow, some way. But it just didn't seem like we were going to find a space within the time period that they needed to get into a space. They were already 3 weeks behind schedule, and school was starting, and the guys were already moving in, getting into the dorms, and we already needed a facility to have wrestling to be done, and we already needed to be training. And they didn't have a facility, didn't have a training space, and so they actually found a space within a high school. I continued to look at retail locations, but it seemed at the time that I kind of weighed my options on some things, and at the time I was in the middle of a move, and I was pretty uncertain about exactly what I wanted to get out of the retail space. So I didn't pull the trigger. I was really patient. I really used that sign that said, hey, like, this was the perfect opportunity to get you into a space, but it didn't work out, so maybe it's time to step back a little bit, have a little bit different of a perspective, and be able to look at this from a different angle. So I was able to kind of have some hindsight after that opportunity fell through, or the opportunity wasn't capitalized on. I hate saying that opportunities fell through. They just don't fall through. They're just not ever capitalized on, and we weren't in a position to capitalize on the opportunity. And so during that time, I said, well, I still would love to be a part of the program. I still would love to wrestle, be part of the program, and see what I could do within the realm of the guys, maybe potentially be a sponsor of ACU, potentially work with your guys, whatever it may be, potentially maybe be on the coaching staff, find a way to be involved as much as I can. And so I started going to the wrestling practices, and I started doing some training, and a little here and a little there and a little bit more here and a little bit more there. And all of a sudden, I got this itch. Oh, man, like, Josh, man, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm 26 years old, bro, but I'm feeling good. I'm beating these young guys down. I still got the movements. I'm still pretty crispy. I'm missing a little bit of timing, but, I've been out of the sport for almost 8 years now, but I feel pretty good. My strength's good. My technique's pretty solid. I got an awesome mindset. I'm still in the game. And you know what? I think there's still some unfinished business in my life. And I texted Coach, and I said, hey, Coach, this was a few months really into all of this. I said, hey, Coach, you call me crazy, but I'm thinking about making a comeback and wrestling for Arizona Christian University. What are your thoughts? And he said, let's meet Wednesday. So we met Wednesday. We both were on the same terms of like what I wanted to receive out of scholarship, as well as what would be required in my circumstance, because obviously I'm a little different than a 19-year-old kid. I've had 4 back surgeries, 2 knee surgeries, 2 dislocated elbows at the times, and just too many bumps and bruises and injuries in between that I can't train the same. I can't beat the crap out of my body every single day like a 19-year-old kid can. So I had to be really, really smart and proactive about my training, really dialed in on my training, detailed and specific about exactly what I want to get out of my training each and every single day. So I said, hey, I had this list of requirements that I needed to do. And he said, you know what, let's talk about it. We'll come to an agreement, and we'll come to what is expected out of you, what's expected out of us, and we'll come to a mutual understanding. So we came to a mutual understanding. And amongst that mutual understanding, I was actually supposed to sign on the dotted line my national letter of intent to wrestle for Arizona Christian University. What happened is my FAFSA, some grants with some money from the government, came back, and I didn't receive as much money as they thought I was initially going to get. So I told them, said, hey, like, I require more money. I require more money to cover the amount that the FAFSA didn't cover, the FAFSA didn't come up with. So they had to go back to the administration and ask more money for an actual scholarship from the administration. So that took some time. But amongst this time, we're getting all my eligibility ready. I'm still training. I'm getting my weight down. I'm under 140 pounds. I came from 165 pounds down to 133 pounds because that was going to be the weight class that I wrestled for them. I'm feeling good. I was going over to Fight Ready, training super hard. Angel Cejudo completely changed my perspective on the sport of wrestling. And I was like, man, I really think that I could do this year. I'm coming off my couch, but man, I got nothing to lose. I'm super hungry, and I'm very calculated, and I'm a 26-year-old man with 1 shot left. And that was always something I always said in the back of my mind, is that I never want to be the woulda, shoulda, coulda, or that the drunk guy at the bar, or the high guy that says, oh, I could have done this, or I could have done that, or like if I would have just had my shot, or they screwed me here. I'm not a believer in that. I'm a believer in is that you create your own path, your own destiny, and if you're a coulda, woulda, shoulda dude guy, you should do it then. You shoulda, would have done it, or you should do it, or you should go do it right now, or you should just shut the fuck up. That's my feelings about that. So it's either do it, step up, or shut the fuck up, and that's where I was at, as I was stepping up, and I said, you know what? I'm sick of all this talk. I'm sick of saying, you know what? I could be an NAI national champion or All-American. All right, let's see what I got. Let's put up or shut up. Let's put my money where my mouth is, and that's what I did. So I was actually 10 days away from wrestling for Arizona Christian University in December. It was December 6th, and they said, hey, we have your scholarship ready. Just stop in. I said, all right, I'm out of town this weekend. I'll stop in on Tuesday, or I'll stop in on Wednesday of this next week. I'll be training Monday and Tuesday over at Fight Ready. I'll stop in Wednesday, sign, and then that following weekend, or that following week, I was supposed to be wrestling. I was supposed to be suited up for them. Well, what happened was, on December 10th, 6 days before I was supposed to compete, when I was training over at Fight Ready, I completely tore my ulnar collateral ligament right off my bone, right off the attachment, snapped it right in half, which is more commonly known as the Tommy John's injury. So you have to get UCL reconstruction surgery, or Tommy John surgery, and typically that's about a 12 to 14 month recovery. It's very invasive. You're out of a lot of mobility, and your day to day is really tough for a handful of months. But typically it means that you're out of competition. It means your career is done. I weighed the pros and cons. I definitely could have wrestled through it, but the doctor told me and say, hey, if you do wrestle through this, first off, we're going to have to brace you from your wrist all the way to your shoulder. You're going to have to change your wrestling style, and you're probably going to need another 5 or 6 weeks before you can even get back into it. And at that 5 or 6 weeks time, that was only going to give me 2 weeks before the qualifying, before nationals. And I said, man, I really sat down with myself, and I said, I can sleep with myself. I took the last 6 months to got my weight down. I did what I needed to do. I proved to myself what I needed to prove to myself, and I'm just going to let go. And obviously it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. And that's today's message, is when I really think about what just happened over the last 7-8 months of my life, it's that whoever you want to say it is, for me, I refer to the source as God. I say God has a big plan. God has the greatest plan for me, because during this time, is like, think about it like this. The first plan that fell through was the retail location. So the retail supplement location fell through. So then it gave me the connection to Arizona Christian University, but then that gave me the inspiration to want to make a comeback. Making that comeback then obviously led to me training incredibly hard, putting my money where my mouth is and doing and going after something I've always said I was going to go after, and trying to make a comeback, making that one last ditch effort to make a comeback on a dream that I've been dreaming since I was 4 years old. And that gave me that ability, that inspiration, and that motivation and that fire to do that, because guess what? Those other parts of the journey fell through. Like, it didn't work out, but it opened other doors in my life. It opened other avenues in my life. And then guess what? One door closed saying, hey, man, we know you've been training incredibly hard over the last 7-8 months. You tore your elbow. You either have to get a $10,000 surgery and get Tommy John surgery, or you kind of take a step back. And taking that step back now in the last 5 months has allowed me to deliver content and deliver my absolute best more than I ever have in business. It's given me that open door policy now that I always required for myself to step up and take that responsibility of what success requires. I was never afraid of failure. I've never been afraid of failure. I've always been afraid of the responsibility of success. And that's the story today, is that oftentimes in our life, God has a greater plan, and things always happen for a reason. So if something happens and one door closes, another will open. Hindsight is always 20/20. So keep faith no matter where you're at in your journey. Keep the faith and understand no matter what, there's a bigger picture to this, because guess what? If I would have opened that retail location, guess what would have happened? COVID-19 would have hit and I would have been bankrupt, dude. My money would have been gone. Thank you, Lord, or thank you, Source, or God, or whoever, for not allowing that opportunity to come up, because you were looking out for me in the end. And now I'm set up to prosper more than I ever have before. And that's today's message. So thank you for tuning in and taking along. This has been an awesome podcast, episode 21 of More in the Know. Be sure to check us out at fieldsupplements.com and stay in the know. Follow me at More in the Know. That's MORINTHEKNOW. And you guys have a blessed Monday. Don't forget, Trials and Tribulations. Find them on Instagram at Trials and Tribulations. Link in the description box. Comment, share, and tell everybody about More in the Know podcast. I appreciate you guys. Peace out.